Step into the light where the wild ones roam, where the heart speaks loud, calling this place home. We break the rules, we paint the sky, ridiculously you, we were born to fly. Ooh, it's ridiculously you.
Hey everyone, it is Julie May and the Ridiculously You podcast. So what happens when a high-achieving attorney walks away from the courtroom and into the wild world of psychedelics? What if burnout wasn't just a mindset problem, but a nervous system screaming at you that we've all been taught to ignore? Today's guest is the brilliant, bold, deeply intuitive Julie Cyvonne. I'm excited we got the Julies today on the podcast. She is a former lawyer turned psychedelic facilitator. She does coaching on that realm. She helps women drop the perfectionism and remember who they are under all of the pressure. And so I'm excited because she blends like that plant medicine, trauma-informed integration, somatic healing, like all of those kind of things together. I'm excited to learn more about that. I have never delved into the realm of actually doing psychedelics myself as of this recording date, which is in January. I cannot promise by the time you listen to that this will be the case, because it is something I've been super interested in as far as what healing and stuff looks like. So can we just go down what did that journey look like here? To me, that's a leap in my mind. I'm like, so you're an attorney, you're doing the thing, and doing that requires a lot of school, a lot, you got to pass the bar, you got to build a clientele, and then you're like, so what we're going to do is we're going to eat over here and do this other thing. So tell me more about that.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Julian, for that wonderful introduction. Truly appreciate it. And yeah, what a sharp turn, right? I don't know any little girl who's writing in their journal as a child, when I grow up, I want to teach people how to safely and effectively use mushrooms to promote change. That doesn't, that doesn't happen. But to be fair, I wasn't also writing in my journal I wanted to be a lawyer. It was something, and I know that sounds crazy to say because it requires, like you said, so much work, but something I sort of fell into or felt a little bit pushed into versus something that had a lot of true heart and meaning for me. At the end of the day, I really just wanted to help people. And, looking back, I feel like that was so naive because what I know now is when two people enter the legal process or, groups of people, it is because they've reached kind of a point of no return where those two people or groups of people, no one is going to leave happy. No one is going to leave feeling like they're whole, whether it be in divorce or a class action lawsuit or whatever. Once that has reached that kind of critical juncture, everyone is going to feel a little salty on the back end. And it was really disheartening. It was really disheartening. It was not my soul's calling. And I had this final kind of breaking point during the pandemic where I was thinking about different practice areas and I decided, okay, I'll do special education law. My brother is autistic, and this I felt was something that, I know parents need it. The school systems don't want to give them the rights that they're entitled to help their children. It felt like I had a lot of passion for me. And so I was going to open an LA location of an East Coast special education firm. And I went out to California. I took the California bar in February of 2020. I passed it. And then in March of 2020, the world shut down. And that I practiced in one more area. I worked with survivors of human trafficking, which obviously was very enriching work. They need legal services more than anyone after everything that they've been through. And it just still wasn't it. I was like, I I have this analogy for life. I feel like whether you think about God or a higher order consciousness or your intuition or higher self, whatever, I feel like it's the water of a river and everyone is in the river. And we all have free will. So we can be a little stubborn salmon, or you can be a sticky starfish and cling to your rock. And I was clinging to this rock of I'm an attorney. That's my identity. But one day a wave just crashed over me and it was like, hey, to me, when things aren't working, that is a signal that something gets to shift. And it really wasn't working. And I was listening to this podcast and this woman said, hey, do you want to get certified to be a coach? And very intuitively, it was a yes for me. Yes, I do. And so I got certified to coach. I was working more in executive coaching and leadership. And then a year into doing that, I was still dealing with some of my own anxiety and depression. And so I pursued psychedelics personally, just because I felt like I had tried everything. I'd gone to therapy, like I had done an entire immersive coaching program. I had tried prescriptions. It wasn't working. And from what I found with psychedelics was true relief. It was long term. It was sustainable. It was pretty fast. And it just blew my mind. And from there, it became my entire work. And here we are today.
Can you tell us a little bit about like what your first experience with mushrooms or with any kind of a psychedelic was for you? Like what did that look like and feel like?
So for mushrooms, it was really interesting. Like I feel like the mushrooms sort of found me. I was running a nonprofit in LA. One of the women I took my coaching certification with, she is definitely one of those visionary type people, but execution feels a little sticky. And obviously, with my background in the law, she was like, "Will you come run this nonprofit?" And I like giving back, of course, sure. And so we were dealing a lot with this expat who was living in Colombia, and he came back to the country and he said, "Hey, let's go get dinner." We've only like connected over to Zoom. And at dinner, he said, "I'm investing in this company. Will you go check it out with me?" And I'm sort of just that yes woman. I didn't really ask any questions. Like, yeah, like let's go check it out. And so we get to this place and it's a mushroom factory. Like this company is making microdoses. And they're growing mushrooms in their it's growing mushrooms really is you want to be careful. Like leave it to the experts. I don't grow my own mushrooms. It's a lot of temperature control and all that sort of thing. So they're growing mushrooms at scale to produce microdosing capsules. And so he hands me a packet of capsules and he's like, "Let me know what you think." And I was like, "What do you mean?" It came with like very, very rudimentary instructions. It was basically like take one capsule every 3 days, stop every two, repeat until like the capsules are gone or whatever. And I was like, "What do you mean?" So I am very research minded. I started researching. I read How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan, an amazing book. And I was combining my tools of transformation into my microdosing practice because what all the research said was that if you microdose, and A, you don't follow a protocol, which is like that schedule of on and off days, but B, you're not combining it with tools of intentional relearning. That's what the research broadly calls it, right? Anything that's going to help make that neuroplasticity, those new connections really stick, then you're not going to receive a long-term integrated benefit. So it's like, okay, well, I have tons of tools. Like, let's go. And so I was testing out all these tools. And yeah, that's how I got. And what I made this reel. I don't even know if it's still up on my page, but it was just me sharing openly on the internet 'cause that's what I was doing, as a coach. That's what I continued to do. And it said like my first 30 days of microdosing, and it was honestly one of the best 30 days. And I healed the root cause of my anxiety and depression. I've like never looked back, and yeah, it was wonderful.
So your first experience was a microdose. What did a microdose feel like in your body? What did it help you do that you weren't getting elsewhere?
So a microdose is truly sub-perceptual. And I just want to put a little like caveat. That wasn't my first psychedelic experience, but that was my first experience with mushrooms. I had sat in like an ayahuasca ceremony before, which is kind of like to me a little bit of a backwards route to take, but the way it all happened and like was presented to me was very like serendipitous, and I feel good about the way that I went about it. I don't know that everyone should jump right into ayahuasca, but I also think you got to trust yourself, right? Like people come to me and like, should I microdose or should I take a larger dose? And so we have more of a conversation of like what feels best for you. Because I know that for me, I know what's right, and I truly believe everyone like is the same for themselves, and we're just really not taught to honor our own internal guidance. And so I help people learn to trust what like they feel directed to from within. So microdose is truly sub-perceptual, and it's true, like every body is different. So for me, I felt a slight energizing effect, but it wasn't like having a cup of cold brew and you're like tweaking out. It was clean and focused and creative. It was very creative. The energy was very much like, okay, let's go, design this web page or whatever. And it reduced my mental chatter a ton. I used to have a really loud brain. Like, this isn't going to work. No one wants to work with you. Like, you suck. Why would anyone listen to you? A lot of negative, like, feedback. And my brain is a very quiet place to be now. Not that, like, I don't ever think, but it's just not pushing back against me and all that I do. But for some people, particularly people who have been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, they are more likely to receive more of a calming effect, kind of like what you hear people say, like someone who truly needs Adderall, for example, or, who where they drink espresso that it actually helps them chill out. It really depends on kind of your physiology.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So for you, it calmed the chatter, it gave you some energy. Like, I don't think those are the effects people think are going to happen when you say the word mushrooms. People think we're going to have like, we're going to see stars and rainbows and we're going to be like, and so maybe talk about the difference between what a microdose and like a bigger macro dose of psychedelics looks like, which is more like what your, I'm assuming your ayahuasca would have looked like. Because ayahuasca is like going like, I'm just going to like jump off the cliff and do the whole thing, right?
Yeah, so you're totally right. Two very different experiences, and that's definitely something like that I get to combat a lot in my day to day is people have a big misconception. Like they lump all things mushrooms into one type of experience, but microdosing, like I said, is truly sub-perceptual, meaning like you can pick up your kids from soccer, you can cook dinner, you can go to work, you could operate heavy machinery theoretically. Like you're not incapacitated in any way. I tell people it is much less than having a glass of wine, than eating a cannabis gummy, than taking a Benadryl even. And so what's happening, you're like, well, then why would I take it, right? What's the point of doing that if I'm not feeling anything? Well, it's still having a positive effect in your brain, right? It's increasing neuroplasticity, meaning like increasing new connections, new parts of your brain that aren't normally talking start to interact, and it quiets down our default mode network. And that's the part of your brain that's really chatty, particularly your posterior cingulate cortex. That's that seat of like self-referential thinking. I suck. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. This is dumb. So when that part gets less brain blood flow in your brain and it kind of quiets down and you're not, I mean, there's already enough obstacles in life, right? Do you need to be your own biggest obstacle and stop yourself from doing so many things because you don't believe in yourself? No. So what a gift that is, especially people who have really loud chatter and feedback, right? So you're taking a 20th, that's usually where I start people, of like a full dose. So the bottom end of a full dose of like a true, like I'm having a trip, right? I'm going on a journey, whatever you want to call it, is 2 grams of mushrooms. So a micro dose, I like to start people off at 100 milligrams. That's a 20th of a regular dose. There is, you're not going to feel anything. For people who are like, I'm really sensitive, okay, we'll start at 50 milligrams. But anything above 300, and when I say 300, that's usually I'm working with like, I say this with like affection and love, but like my meathead guys, like they're really jacked and their body comp is just like it's different, right? But for the average person, 100 milligrams is great. You're going to see a lot of benefits. For some people, particularly people who have maybe treatment-resistant depression, fibromyalgia, have been on SSRIs for a long time, 200 might be a better option for them. So that's kind of like the realm of microdosing. Macro or a mushroom ceremony, that's what when I host a retreat, it's not just like a mushroom journey, it's a mushroom ceremony, it's intentional, it's guided, it's blessed, etc. That is anywhere from two to like beyond. Some people might have colloquially heard the term hero's dose. That's like
Yes.
4.5 to 5 grams. So that's usually the range that women take at my retreats. It's between 2 and 5. And it really is like, let's have a conversation and see where you feel most comfortable. But that's when you're going to have visual effects, potentially like auditory effects. You're going to really feel it in your body, and you are going to, it's not safe to drive. You can't look at your phone. Like no one's leaving the playground in my retreats.
So, what are the benefits of doing it that way? So, you have people there, we're in retreat setting, you're going to do, we're taking them on a ceremony. How does that look and feel to them, and what are the benefits of doing it that way?
Yeah, so when I think about my retreat babes, I mean, on the very like clinical end of the spectrum, I've had doctors come to my retreats who are just like, I am interested in what it would look like to enter a non-ordinary state of consciousness, and they're honestly there just to like experience it. On the other end, a larger dose is really beneficial for my babes who know like, so for instance, one woman came to my retreat and she knew like her parents were an alcoholic, her or alcoholics, her parents were abusive, her parents were neglectful. Like she had a truly traumatic childhood and she knew like she had done all this other stuff and it had not really touched this crux of her wounding, which was the ways that she was not cared for as a child. So she wanted to have this experience, like break through this, wall around this, the stuff she was very aware of, but wasn't fully processing in other formats. And so in her experience, she shared with the circle, like the group of women afterwards, she was able to see that version of herself. And although her parent, like the journey didn't change her parents, the
Yeah.
journey allowed her to step in and give her younger self like the protection, the care, and the nurturing that she didn't receive, and like finally close that loop for her. I've had other people come who've dealt like with losses of children, like so on the one end, right, it's just like I want to know more, I want to explore. On the other end, it's like I know I have stuff that traditional methods of working on yourself, healing, like mental health, recommendations, it's not working for me. And I want to finally move past it and release it.
Hmm. So you used to work in the law degree area. What
Yeah.
about this? Like, tell me the legalities. Tell me like what are the rules? What's the playing ground like in as being a facilitator and somebody who wants to try and explore what this looks like? Is it different in each state? Is it like tell me more about that because I know there's people listening right now that are like, that sounds like I'm gonna get arrested. That sounds like
Yeah, so still different in each state, just like cannabis still is, right? But I think what's cool
yeah.
about cannabis is that it set us up to kind of give us like a model of sort of what to expect. So when we think about the journey of like cannabis or any other substance that is on its road to legalization and decriminalization, it's kind of like a J curve. So where cannabis is already exploded, and I live in Kansas City, Missouri. So on the Missouri side, cannabis is legal. On the Kansas side, it's not, which creates a really interesting landscape
Oh
instead
wow.
of like being taken off. I feel like psilocybin is right at like the right as the J starts to kind of make it shift. So it's still in a bit of a sticky spot, meaning when we want to look at places where like it's totally fine, we're looking at Oregon, Colorado. California is tricky because I feel like California always does what it wants and it varies a lot city by city. But even Washington, D.C., which can feel so crazy because federally psychedelics are still illegal. Like Washington, D.C., you can buy microdosing psilocybin capsules in dispensaries. And then it really does vary state to state as we're pursuing different legislation for decriminalization and legalization. But for the microdosing piece, I work with three different companies that I personally recommend. I always tell people like, hey, if you have a different whatever and you want to like order your capsules from there and for my facilitation purposes, like, you go ahead. But if you order from one of my companies that I work with, I know that you're getting only dried ground mushrooms. They're exactly what they say they are. They're pre-measured correctly, etc. And they deliver to all 50 states. So they show up. I wish I had one on my desk. I can't believe I don't. But they show up looking like vitamin capsules that you'd get off Amazon, right? So it's really like it's very easy. I hope TSA isn't listening, but I've definitely traveled with them, etc., right? Versus my retreats, they are in places. Yes, like, I'm going to have two in California this year, one in Lake Tahoe, one in San Diego. And that's where you can come have like the full dosing experience.
Yeah. So, because anytime you're taking anything into your body, it's so important to have, good clean sources and know what you're actually putting in your body. But, I see people all the time that are like doing it's in a chocolate bar or they went to the mall and got something under the counter or like, I have a
Yeah.
source and a thing and whatever. And I'm like, okay, so like, can you give people recommendations on how to find clean sources? Let's say they don't use one of your, microdosing places. What suggestions do you have for people to try and find something that's going to be good and clean and, appropriate for what they want to do?
Ooh, I mean, honestly, that's hard because I'm really into research, as you might have picked up on. But there was recently,
Yeah.
like, they did an independent study and testing, and they were looking at mushroom. I'm glad you mentioned chocolate and gummies. And what they
Yeah.
found were like there was actually little to no psilocybin in it at all. So like their claims of 4 grams, whatever. So unless you're like looking at a company that has been studied and said like this is true, I mean, it's hard for me to give a recommendation because I feel like. I know the companies I work with because I've researched them, but I can't say the same for others. I think one thing that could be good to look for, whether you're using them for psychedelic purposes or functional mushrooms, is to look for companies that say they only use fruiting bodies. So the fruiting body of the mushroom is the part of the mushroom you see, versus the mycelium is the interconnected structure underneath the mushrooms. And so a lot of people will be like, "Oh yeah, this contains 4 grams of mushroom." Well, if it contains the mycelium, you're not getting the benefit of the fruiting body. But even then, it's like that's also what's so hard about this landscape. It's like not really regulated. So they can be making, but that's the same of like all sorts of like energy supplements and crap, right? Like they're making claims. So I feel like I'm not giving the best answer and I apologize for that, but I can only say that I know the companies I work with are good because I've researched them and I trust them, you know?
That's completely fair. Completely fair. So describe the person who might be ready for this kind of therapy, for getting in and doing some microdosing. What have they tried before? What are some clues that maybe they might want to look into this?
Well, I do really want to just I know that you never said this, but I just want to be super clear is I'm not a therapist and I don't want to make that claim. I don't ever want someone to think that I am or for me anyone to feel that I represented myself as such. But I would say for the people who are ready to do this, they've done therapy. They could probably actually do the therapy that their therapist is giving them. They're extremely self-aware. They're probably painfully self-aware, painfully because they know what they're doing, but they're just not choosing a different habit, right? They've been in talk therapy for 2 years and they look around and think, what's different in my life versus 2 years ago? Like I'm still in this situationship or I haven't left this bad job or whatever else. And they've done it. They've gone to therapy, they've listened to the podcast, they've read the books, they've maybe tried pharmaceuticals, and it just feels like nothing is working for them. I usually get people at that place, right, where they've invested thousands, if not tens of thousands, in even different modes of therapy, like EMDR, et cetera, right? Um, but then I mean, I'm starting to get more and more people, particularly like younger generation, who like because we're talking about this more, they're just like, no, I researched all this stuff and I know I don't want to do prescriptions and I've heard microdosing is a great alternative and this is the path that I want to pursue. At the core of all of it, though, I would say most of my little cuties, they're dealing with some anxiety, depression, OCD, addiction, or PTSD because those issues structurally in our brain are operating with like the same system, meaning there's like they're really rigid, there's low neuroplasticity, low neural modulation, there's a lot of looping, repetitive behavior, etc. And so when you really stop to think about it, like these are all just flavors of ice cream. They're the same thing, they're ice cream, but one's pistachio and one's chocolate and one's like sherbet.
That's I love the different kinds of ice creams. It's like, yeah, it's all out there. I'm excited about the younger generation that is going and doing their research and going straight to things like this and going, do you know what? We have all of this research that says these things only work so far. Why not go straight to something that has research that shows that it works faster and more effectively? And like that's my kids' ages, and my kids are mostly in their 20s right now. And I see them going straight to doing more out of the box thinking, more, holistic medicine, more, outside of traditional ways of doing things. And I'm like, man, that is fantastic that they feel the freedom and can look at things, and they're very research oriented too. And so they'll just go in and be like, so I'm going to go straight to try this method. I'm like, that's probably pretty wise. I like that the new generation, like that's upcoming, going into like early 20s, mid 20s right now, is doing a lot more of not just following the path that everyone has said for generations. I think like my generation, I'm like Gen Xy. We just kind of like, there was parts that we just kind of, all the generations before we just went, well, everyone expects us to go to college. Everyone expects us to kind of do this path. And even though we did do like just kind of think for ourselves and do some things, not as much as this generation that I see now, where they're like, see those boxes? We're throwing out all boxes in all categories. And they're just kind of like reinventing what being an adult or a human looks like. And I think it's really exciting. I'm excited to see what kind of evolves over as they get into like their 30s and 40s, what our country becomes. I think it's exciting.
I am still really hung up on the fact that you said you have kids in your 20s because your skin is amazing. I'm like, there's no
Yeah,
way.
my oldest daughter turns 31 next month in like 2 weeks.
You
So
need to do a podcast episode on your skincare routine then.
thank you. I appreciate that.
But yeah, you're right, right? I'm working with a woman, she's 29, she's a structural engineer, and I think that like that age, a little bit older and younger, they're really into longevity. That's a word I hear a lot. Biohacking, like they're done with big pharma. They want to find the way to live longer and feel good.
They do. And that's something I'm very into. Those people who listen to me a lot know that I'm like, maybe you can tell by looking at me, I'm very into health and longevity and like what we could do to like biohack our systems. I always say like I eat foods that are going to nutritionally support
Yeah.
me, myself, my brain, my everything, because I love myself. I'm going to do those things, right? So, with that, I'm excited about that, but I want to roll into a lightning round. You ready
Oh,
for some
okay.
lightning round? Yay,
Yeah.
lightning round! Okay. Okay. A song you'd play if you wanted to walk into the room and feel like a total boss, the song that you would be playing.
Oh, John Summit. There's a new song he hasn't released yet, but it played at one of his sets. Something like "Where do you go when the lights go down?" I love John Summit. I love to go to a rave.
Okay, cool. So that's what's playing. You walk into the room, you feel like a boss.
Yeah.
The first thing you say that you think is going to have the most impact to whoever's in that room.
All the rules you're living by are made up, some by you.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. I agree. Rules are freaking made up. Okay, one thing that still freaks you out a little bit, but you still do it anyway. Something that freaks you out just a little bit still, but you do it anyway.
Oh my God, sales.
That is such a
Yeah.
real answer. Okay, tell me about a moment you felt fully just alive and expressed, and you're just like, this is why I do the thing I do. Just tell me one moment like that.
I jumped out of a plane this summer over Hawaii.
That is fantastic. Cool. I will not be. This is like the one thing that people tell me, like they've been like, you need to go do the thing. And I'm like, but I have also decided that I will not be jumping out of a
That's fair.
plane. Today, right now, in Julie's body, I will not. I have reserved the right to change my mind at any time. Okay, I'm going to ask you a few. Burn it down or keep it. Burn it down or keep it.
Okay.
Hustle culture, hustling to get where
Burn
you
it
want to go.
down.
Burn it down. Business masterminds,
Oh, keep them.
keep them. Traditional therapy,
Burn it down.
burn it down. Ooh, let me think. Women's lib,
Keep it.
keep it, keep it.
I'm trying to think, is there a reason we would burn it down? Keep it.
There's aspects that I go to. I need to do everything, but
Right
that's
there.
that's a perverted form of women's lib anyway. Okay, burn it down or keep it. College.
Ooh. Keep it for people who really know, like, this is the path that I want to take, and it requires something in that kind of classroom environment.
Yeah, I say keep it for things like you're a surgeon. I want
Yeah.
you to have all that freaking training.
Me too.
Marketing.
Yeah.
There's things, but I don't know if you need to go through a 6-year master's degree for that one.
No.
Okay, if you had one more message for our audience, it would be.
Whether or not you're intrigued about psychedelics at all, the biggest through line in my life and business has been the power of intention and remembering that you can set an intention in all moments for all things, and that intention really puts us in the driver's seat of co-creation with life. And you can let life happen to you, or you can decide to steer life how you'd like to see it evolve and express. And so I hope that you take intention into your day, even if you're like, this girl sounds whacked out and mushrooms are dumb.
I want to ask you one more question, because this is where we really get to a next step for people,
Okay.
is feeling a hell yes in their body. When you talked about there was like a coaching thing and it felt like a yes to you, and when people like want to go on, either hiring you for coaching to get through some psychedelics or going through a journey with that in another means, it needs to feel like a hell yes in their body. What does a hell yes feel like in your body?
Well, I'm a splenic projector, and I really go by that. So the spleen isn't like a gut, like it's not so much like in your tummy, like, yes, I know this. It's a very subtle, just like yes, that kind of like reverberates through me. Or feeling like no, like it's really very much instantaneous. So I know that I can trust that for myself, but some people are like, they're more emotional authorities and they have to ride the wave. So I would really get clear on like, what is your mode? Because I don't think there is one mode of yes for everyone. It does look different person to person, but like think back on big decisions, whether it be like, I think that's what's really cool about life is you can go through your life with sort of a microscope on the back end and say, oh, okay, I felt really good about this thing that I did. What was the process like leading up to that? And from there, discerning, okay, so this is how I know for me that something is a yes, and applying that moving forward.
Yeah, I agree because, I think I've been to so many personal development events. I've hosted like hundreds of them. And, the gurus in the front of the room who are like, it always feels like this. You're like, okay, that's what it feels like to you in your body. But that's a question I like to explore on here so that people can understand there's so many different ways to express and feel like what yes feels like. Like what does the tangible feeling feel like? Is there a physical sensation? Is there warming? Does the yes come down and feel in your gut? Does it feel more in your mind? Does it feel like all of these different ways so that they can start to go, oh, it's okay that mine feels a little bit different and looks a little bit different. I can trust me because there's lots of expressions of how a yes, that hell yes feels in your body. And if you guys are listening right now and Julie is a hell yes for you, you want to hear more, you want to see more, you want to learn more about what that looks like, people can find you where?
Well, you can come find me on Instagram at JuliCyvonne. You can DM me and want to talk more and ask me a direct question. Or if you're just curious, you can DM me the word journey and take my really quick quiz to see if microdosing is right for you. If you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe this is a no for me. And at least you'll get a very clear answer, right? Because there are some contraindications, some things where like this just isn't the right path. Or my website is the same, JulieCyvonne.com. Or if you're just like, wow, psychedelics are cool, you can listen to my podcast, The Inner Trip, 365 Days with Plant Medicine, where I talk way more about all these things. But I love what you said. I think we really get shamed in society to think like a yes looks a certain way. And my EA is an emotional authority, so she really does have to ride away for like 24 hours or more to like really feel into what is right for her. Whereas I'm just like, okay, yes, let's go. And it's really important that we honor each other's yes.
I absolutely agree. So those of you guys who are listening, if this felt like a yes to you, you know that there's people out there this can help. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, send a little message to your friends that you're like, okay, we've talked about this. Here's more information about how we can look more into this kind of a journey. We can look more into what psilocybin could look like in your healing. Make sure you send this to your friends that are on this path or that are just like, psilocybin curious. That's all you gotta be, is curious about it. Then you can come in and listen more, share this with all these people. You can follow Julie Cyvonne and her work on Instagram. All of her links will be below. You can go to her website. You can do her quiz and see if that might be right for you. And in the meanwhile, this is Julie May from the Ridiculously You podcast, asking you to remember to love even the ridiculous parts of yourself. Show that love to others. And with that, we'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Share the spark, take it higher. Hit subscribe, bring a friend. Let the wildness never end. Tap in, stay